Hi guys, it's Brooke here. I have a super quick favor to ask. When you have a moment, please take just a second to give this podcast a 5-star review. This will help me to continue the podcast and continue to bring these resources to the community. Thank you so much for that 5-star review.
One criteria that I always look at, Brooke, is I ask the question, is this something that could help me learn how to help someone on the spectrum? And if I can say yes, then I will sign up for the course and follow through with it. If it's a no and it's just to get some hours, then I'm like, I might not do it. I'll just find something else that could help me. So that's kind of been my journey.
All right, welcome back to Finding Hope on the Spectrum. Today's episode is one I know will resonate deeply with so many families. And today I'm joined by Dr. Knight, the founder of the Autism Wellness Center of Utah, whose passion for helping children with autism and supporting their families comes from years of hands-on experience and heartfelt dedication. His journey has led him to explore innovative approaches to improving neurological health, reducing inflammation, and supporting the whole child. And today he's here to share with us. So welcome, Dr. Knight.
Thanks so much, Brooke. It's an honor to be here with you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it was so great to kind of connect with you and get to know you better before today's recording. And I'd love for you to share just a little bit about your journey and kind of what led you into chiropractic care and then eventually into cellular and foundational medicine.
You bet. Love to answer that. So I graduated from chiropractic school in 2012. Prior to that, I actually, in my undergraduate program, I thought I was going to go into medical school, honestly. I always have had a desire to serve people. I love the human body. I love anatomy. That's always been a huge interest of mine. I actually, when I was doing my undergraduate program, I was volunteering in the ER for probably about 9 months. I shadowed a lot of different medical doctors, interviewed several. And when all was said and done, I was really impressed with their work and happy for what they're offering, but it just didn't really speak to me the way I was expecting it to. Mm-hmm. And so I actually kind of forfeited the idea of going into med school. And I graduated, in fact, with a business management degree, with having done all my pre-med classes along with that. So I actually went into business for about 1.5 to 2 years working for a company in Texas. And it's when I was in Texas is where I learned about chiropractic. And I was like, where has this been all my life? So so when I heard about chiropractic, it just felt right. It felt like it matched my personality. I grew up as an athlete, playing a lot of different sports. So I was very mindful of the importance of taking care of my body and the importance of caring for the body, as well as seeing the way the beauty of the body, of how it just finds ways to heal itself, to recover, and just to perform in incredible ways. So chiropractic just felt right. And I started out with, of course, the traditional approach of doing a lot of musculoskeletal work. I still do some of that in my office, but I later kind of found a great interest in the cellular healing aspect and the physiology. Mm-hmm. And it fascinated me to realize, like, wow, chronic illness doesn't necessarily need to be chronic illness. As I learned more and more about it, and I saw that, lifestyle and different habits and even just some of the systems that are in place aren't always ideal for the chronic illness patient. Fantastic resources for the acute care patient, but the chronic, I was just like, man, there's got to be better ways. And so it just led me down a path to learning, to growing, and to discovering just the beauty, again, of our body. If we can give it the right tools and the right resources, then in a sense, we can step back and watch, incredible things unfold, because ultimately, our body is designed to be self-healing. Our body's designed to be self-regulating, which means, we don't think about how many red blood cells we make on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. But it just happens, right? And our body knows when to recycle those red blood cells. And so there's so many different systems internally that our body's just capable of doing. And so knowing that and knowing how the brain and the nervous system orchestrates a lot of the function and how there's ways we can influence that whole process in a positive way, it really got me excited to step into it. And really, I would say the biggest reason why I even got into that world was mostly because of my desire to want to serve kids on the spectrum.
Yeah, amazing. What a fascinating journey that you've
Yeah.
had. That I'm sure that med school training helped to understand the body better, and then to see that this is really your passion. And so I'm excited for you to share more about the work you're doing now. And I'd love for you to share kind of what drew you to autistic individuals.
Yeah. So a few things I feel like, and I'm a believer of God, and I feel like He had a huge influence in me and my life in terms of the way He prepared me for this.
Mm-hmm.
So even at an early age, I interacted a lot with individuals that had special needs, whether they were Down syndrome or autistic or whatever. My mother in our church group, she had an opportunity to serve over young adults and teenage kids that were had special needs. And so I remember going with her as a kid to Halloween parties and other gatherings where these kids with special needs had. And at first, I think I was a little bit nervous because I hadn't interacted with kids that had special needs much. But then I realized, hey, these are just individuals that are just like me. They just have some different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So I got pretty comfortable with that. And then even later on, a close family that I was really close with, they had a son with special needs that I grew to love and adore. And then even after that, I should say around the same time, my mother remarried, and my stepsisters, they both have, two of my stepsisters have sons on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And so I witnessed a lot of what they went through as far as some of the challenges. And then fast forward, the ultimate reason was really, I just felt God saying, hey, Jeff, this is something that you need to do. You need to find ways to help these kids. There's a lot of need, and whatever you can do to make a difference in this field will be of great value for you and for those families. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, I just felt really impressed that was something I needed to do. So, and I'm grateful because I fought against that impression initially. Because I'm like, I was like, I don't know what I'll do and how I'll get to that point. But really it was, I started opening my eyes to recognize different avenues of training and education and things that put me in places to where I gathered a lot of tools over the years to where I'm now at a point where I just have a lot of confidence in helping these families, and I'm loving serving the families that have kids on the spectrum. So
amazing. I love that. That is such a beautiful journey, and just a testament to listening, and knowing that it will work out,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not always easy to listen.
No. And I was stubborn for a while. Brooke. So fortunately, God's been patient with me.
Yeah, so. I love that. I'm so glad you shared that part of your journey. And, I believe in that wholeheartedly, and listening and knowing that it is what is your life's journey is meant to be. So,
yeah, you bet.
And, let's talk about the training you have now and the cellular healing and detox protocols, and, MAPS is a big thing too. How does that shape your approach?
Speaking of MAPS, I was just there last week in North Carolina with a bunch of other like-minded practitioners that are wanting to serve and help support this community like myself. So I would say a lot of the training, it started with, I kind of went through it kind of a little bit at a time. I remember the first training I received was a lot on digestion and digestive health. So focusing on the importance of that and making sure the body is able to break down food, absorb nutrients, and how that can really be a critical piece. And then, of course, choosing what kind of foods to put into our body is going to be important. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the first trainings I did back in 2014. From there, I then learned about some neurological things with ways to help reset the nervous system. And then from there, I learned different things with the cellular healing. And I went through a whole, it's probably like a 3 to 4 year course / coaching program where it was dedicated to learning about cellular healing and safe forms of detoxification. And so this was through some different doctors that have had many more years of experience that I had. And so I was fortunate to learn from some really good mentors that helped me, that had also had success helping kids on the spectrum. And that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to work with them. And so I learned about all the critical things that you need to do and how some detoxing processes can go bad because you might miss certain steps. And so where it's not just an easy thing to implement really, but there are certain steps that are necessary. And then from there, I added even more tools with learning a little bit more from other practitioners that had success, but wanting to see it from a different perspective, and then learning about different tools. And so I've done a lot of training with different companies as far as supplements go too, because I'm thinking like, okay, I know the systems, I know the processes of the body. I need to have good tools that I can trust. And so I've really relied on a lot of education from good companies that I can trust as well. So it's been a fun journey. I would say every time I've had to go and do continuing education credits to keep my doctor license up to date, one criteria that I always look at, Brooke, is I ask the question, is this something that could help me learn how to help someone on the spectrum? And if I can say yes, then I will sign up for the course and follow through with it. If it's a no, and it's just to get some hours, then I'm like, I might not do it. I'll just find something else that could help me. So that's kind of been my journey. And literally, I would say the amount of time and money I've invested since I've been out of, getting my Doctor of Chiropractic degree, it probably could equate to multiple master's programs at this point. But, I don't need, I've gotten additional education and knowledge, which has been really helpful. And that's the thing that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think in this field with autism specifically, there are so many trainings that like MAPS and the ones that you mentioned, that, have incredible resources and supports for professionals. I've had a lot of MAPS doctors on this podcast, and
nice.
It's been fantastic to learn from them, just having these conversations. So
yeah,
much needed. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I still have a lot of clients that haven't heard of MAPS, which is crazy to me. But I think that it's just so important for people to know that it's something that's out there that's important to see if it would be helpful for your child.
Yeah.
So, but now you mentioned healing at the cellular level. And for those that don't know what that means, I'd love for you to share kind of in practical terms what that means.
You bet. Yeah. So the cells, so if you think about it, our bodies are made up of trillions of cells. So think of each cell as like a little human, and that we are governing this country. You could say our body is the country, the United States of the cells, or whatever. And so we have the opportunity to really influence every cell through a lot of the things that we choose to do with our body and for our body. Now, when there's stress at the cellular level through inflammation, then that can make things really tricky. In fact, hopefully you don't mind me using a very elementary illustration here, but I've got, I'm not an artist, but I'm going to share it because I don't know how many people are going to watch this or how many people are going to listen. So I'll explain it while I show, but hopefully, can you see this okay, Brooke?
Yes.
So this is my visual of what a cell looks like in a very elementary form. It's a circle with all those hair-like projections are the cell receptors. And then inside the cell, you have like your nucleus, and you've got like the mitochondria, and you've got other things. Now, ideally, in a perfect, ideal scenario, you're going to have these things over here will be able to attach to the cell. So that would be like your vitamins, your minerals, your nutrients, and even your hormones. and everything that will attach to the cell delivers information into the cell, and then the cell will actually utilize that to either convert it to energy or utilize it for some other system in the body. And then it takes that stuff that it utilized, and then it'll push it out outside of the cell into what we call the extracellular matrix, and that would be considered waste. Okay. But one of the challenges is, as you can see these squiggly lines over here, so we can get cellular inflammation because of different things like toxins, chemicals, hidden infections, mold, other types of stressors, even like emotional stress, can cause inflammation at the cell level. And so when the cell is inflamed, it makes it harder for these good things to get into the cell, because some of these bad guys are actually taking up the seat of the cell, of those nutrients that need to attach to the cell. And so it makes it a little more tricky for the good things to get into the cell when there's things that are attaching to the cell wall and creating that inflammation. And so it's really critical that we pay attention, because if that's happening at the cellular level, it's creating that ripple effect into so many other parts of our body. And so many people know this and many people don't know this, but in a sense, your body, my body, we're regenerating and recreating a new body. Basically, like it takes about I think it's 9 months or so. So like my skin, for example, the cells of my skin will regenerate once a month. The digestive tract, the lining of my digestive tract will slough off dead cells and regenerate new cells, every week, actually. Even my bones in my arms and my hands and my legs and everywhere, there's these little cells that actually break down old bone and then rebuild new bone. So there's this constant regeneration happening, whether we realize it or not. The health of our cells will determine how well that regenerative cell is going to look. So it's like, let's use a 0 to 10 scale. If maybe because of my poor health, or because I've been exposed to some different things that have caused a lot of stress on my body, whether it is toxins, chemicals, hidden infections, whatever, maybe my cell health is only at like a 4 out of 10. So if I stay living in a 4 out of 10 and I don't do anything to help my cells, then I'm going to regenerate to a 4, so to speak. Yeah. But if I start to focus on those things that are creating the inflammation at the cell wall, and that's really affecting my whole body, then I can get an upgrade, so to speak. So my 4 could turn into a 6, and then I could potentially go from a 6 to a 7 or an 8. And so like I have one patient who's not on the spectrum, but she's someone that I've worked with over the years. She's now in her 60s. She said, when I started working with her in her 50s, she says, I feel healthier and more energetic in my 50s than I did in my 40s. And so there's people that can actually have a transformation if we focus on activities, habits, and then of course, focus on removing the things that are creating the inflammation at the cell level. It's amazing how that can really amplify somebody's ability to heal and to thrive. And so I've implemented that same science and process as I focus on helping kids on the spectrum, knowing that a lot of these kids have been bombarded with toxins, chemicals, hidden infections, sometimes trauma and other stressors that can really overwhelm their brain and their nervous system.
Oh, that's such a good explanation. It makes so much sense. And, it's one of those things you just can't deny. And we know, the impact of our clients with autism and how, this really does impact their brain and their ability to learn and so many things. And so, in your experience, kind of how are you just supporting these individuals through this healing process? Kind of walk us through what that looks like in your practice.
Okay. Yeah. So I think a good thing that any parent can actually implement right away is definitely certain things with diet. So there's a lot of dietary counsel or recommendations. And ultimately, it's not always so much about the diet, but it's more about the types of foods we're putting into the body. So again, I feel like, unfortunately, the world we live in and the foods that we've been told to eat regularly and the types of ingredients that, look like or sound like they should be healthy, unfortunately, are it may be good marketing, or it just may be a simplified way of labeling something. But I'll give you one example of a food that we should all avoid to the best of our ability. And I know sometimes it's really hard to avoid these things, especially if you're eating at like a family member's house, or if you're going out to eat on vacation, or if you're traveling. You can't always know what's in all the ingredients. Of course, you can ask, but one thing that would be a great place to start for anyone that can cause cellular inflammation is the type of oil that we use when we cook. So that would be vegetable oils. I would avoid those as much as possible. So any kind of seed oil, whether it's the soybean or canola oil, those are probably the two worst ones in my opinion. But other seed oils can be very inflammatory as well. And the reason why those can be problematic is because that cell wall, actually part of the cell wall is made up of fatty acids as well as cholesterol. And it needs good saturated fats are actually better for the cell wall than these polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats that come from vegetable oil. And I'm not saying that all omega-6 or other some of those other oils are bad, but those ones are highly processed and they are highly inflammatory. So I would choose things more like grass-fed butter. Ghee is really good. Using things like olive oil or coconut oil, those are great options. Avocado oil can be a good one too.
Yeah.
But those are the things that I would definitely strongly consider that can be things you can implement right away. And so the nice thing is, it's not like you have to create this dramatic lifestyle change, but really you're just going to exchange those inflammatory oils with a healthier option. So those are things. And then there's other foods too that we talk about. We definitely encourage families to avoid food dyes as much as possible, because those can be neurotoxic as well. So like the red food dyes, the yellows, the blues, all of those things can be really inflammatory and problematic. And then, highly processed foods in general. So those are one of the big things. And then from there, we focus a lot on supporting the organs and glands that are designed to detoxify. So this is like where we address like supporting the liver, the kidneys, make sure that they're pooping regularly. We focus on the lymphatic system. And the reason why we focus on those organs and systems of the body is because those are the key detoxing organs and glands and systems that help eliminate. And so that's a really critical piece. And then, of course, we really focus on providing some additional support to the brain and the nervous system. But then we do implement from day one products that actually help with cellular inflammation and help heal the cell wall. So that's a big piece. And then we transitioned into some other steps. Hopefully that answers, at least gives you an idea of where we start with this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are, some real tangible things that are not, as you mentioned, not hard to do, that you can start with. And it's just a process, one step at a time for families to learn and to make these changes. And, what I loved is kind of the structure that you have set up to help families that you're supporting in this program. And so I want to make sure we have time for you to kind of talk about this online version of the work that you're doing and what that looks like and how you can really support people remotely now through this process. So what does that look like?
This show is brought to you by Therapeutic Approach to Growth. Therapeutic Approach to Growth helps families with relationship and behavioral needs. Their holistic programs are individualized to honor and respect each family and their autistic son or daughter's sense of self through programs such as relationship development intervention, naturalistic ABA, and animal-assisted services. If you're finding yourself frustrated or discouraged with your current behavioral programs and would like to see more long-term meaningful growth for you and your family, then contact TAG today at www.tag4growth, that's FORGROWTH.com to learn more about how to schedule a consultation or how they can offer you the help your family needs, whether in person, remotely, or in a school setting. Again, that's www.tag4growth.com.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad. Thanks for asking that question. So the organization that I've created, it's called Health Empowered Families, and it is basically a spin-off of some of the things I was doing in my office. But I realized my bandwidth was running thin. I didn't have as much availability to see people face to face. So I created a very user-friendly approach to helping families virtually throughout the country. And so it's an opportunity where families can use me as a coach, so to speak, and I guide them and direct them with this cellular healing program. And so families that I work with, we focus on a 4-phase program that's designed to help with the cellular healing, starting with preparation and supporting those downstream detox pathways. Then we move into a focus on detoxification and pulling out the toxic metals, the toxic chemicals, hidden infections. And then, of course, throughout all this, we're continuing to support the cellular health and making sure the body's feeling supported, through vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And then we focus a lot on the mitochondria. That's our phase 3, where we really build up and support the mitochondrial function, because that's, the mitochondria is critical for these kids on the spectrum, making sure that the energy that's being produced from the mitochondria can really support the systems, but also energy, connection, communication, focus, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then we do focus a lot on the gut health as well. So making sure there's a good microbiome and that the digestion's working well, that elimination's happening, that absorption of nutrients is happening, healing any leaky gut issues, because with leaky gut, there's leaky blood-brain barrier issues. And so that can definitely overwhelm the system. So it's really a systematic step-by-step approach, and families can engage with me to where they don't have to worry about trying to do this alone. I've created open office hours where families can get on weekly that work with me, and they can answer questions, and I can help guide them and give them other nuggets that can be beneficial as well. Mm-hmm. They have an online tool where there's a bunch of videos I've created that educate them and give them additional insight and direction. And ultimately, it's just a great way of helping a lot of families with still creating a lot of value. I know there's been some parents that I'm working with. They said, hey, I had a great doctor. I really liked working with them, but it took 6 months before I could get back in on their schedule. Mm-hmm. Or there was another doctor that I wanted to go visit, but they were in like another country, and they invited me to come live and stay there for a month to get treatment. And I know it would have been great, but I couldn't financially afford it, or the time away from my work and the time away from the other family. So, I hear stuff like that often. So that's where I just put myself in the shoes of a mother or father of a child on the spectrum and thought, okay, what would be the best way to get as much support and, help needed, but without feeling like you don't have the help that you want. So that's where, again, families have access to me weekly that are working with me, and they don't have to wait to, forever to try to get the questions answered that they have. And so the easiest way to access that program is going to healthempoweredfamilies.com, and you can put in your name and information to watch a better detailed description of cellular healing. It's a free video that you can watch. And if you choose to, then you can set up a consultation, and then we can, talk and have an opportunity to see if it might be a good fit for both of us. So again, it's that's the best way to do it. And like I said, healthempoweredfamilies.com would be the website.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to include that in the show notes as well. And just to clarify too, this is a 5-month program. Is that right? That they're signing up for?
Yep, it's a 5-month program if we choose to work together. And then after that, I do give families the opportunity to do like a month-to-month type of option of where they still have access to me. and then they would actually even get a lifetime discount to our supplement store as well.
Oh, okay, great. And
So
and
yeah.
the supplements on the website as well? They can just order right through
So
there.
our supplement store is under construction right now. It's not
Okay.
fully finished, but it should be done soon.
Okay.
And but yeah, once we start engaging with these families, it won't be connected to that website specifically, but I'll give them access to that website with a code that would allow them to have an ongoing 15% off from anything that we offer from our store.
Okay. Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
And we didn't speak about it. I'd love for you to share just kind of the lab results that you use in your program and kind of how
Hmm.
you gave the
Yeah,
recommendations.
you bet. So I try to keep things really simple with the families I'm working with. And so I love labs, and usually the most of the families that I'm working with have already done some kind of lab testing up to this point.
Hmm.
So a lot of times we'll just use the labs they already have, whether it's a CBC, which is looking at your white blood cells and red blood cells, or looking at the metabolic panels, looking at the cholesterol. Cholesterol is one thing that I think most families don't realize is so important for these kids. And actually, I see that when kids' cholesterol is too low, that can definitely have a direct impact with the brain and the nerves, because cholesterol is a building block of our brain, the nerves, and specifically the myelin sheath that covers our nerves that helps transmit signaling.
Hmm.
It also is critical for hormones. So if cholesterol is too low, then we have ways that we can strategically help bring that back up. I want to see cholesterol at least a 160. Anyways, I'm kind of diverting, but I wanted to touch on that because that is really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, just regular blood panels. We'll do some oats tests or urine tests. I like the genetic testing. Those can be insightful, mostly for just understanding types of foods or other things that could potentially cause more stress on the body, or maybe also indicating if there needs some additional support with detoxification as well. So
Hmm.
a lot of families already have a lot of labs. I don't always tend to order a ton just because so many people have said, hey, we ordered like $2,000 worth of labs and we haven't even started any kind of like
Yeah.
treatment plan for my child. I really want to just kind of find a way to create some change right now. And so
Mhm.
depending on their history and where they're at, that will determine, what we choose to do. And again, we can use labs that they already have on hand, even if it's only like 6 months to a year old. And if the child's symptoms and their presentation has stayed the same, there's a good chance their labs are probably going to be pretty similar to if we were to order new ones. So
Yeah.
again, I'm trying to find ways to save families money, but those labs can be really helpful and insightful and give us some good information. And so I'm definitely not opposed to it either.
Yeah. And I think what's like so significant is that you're really teaching the parents to understand their child and understand what's happening and kind of be in that driver's seat. And,
Yeah,
I think that's so empowering for families to really
you
understand this
bet.
is complicated
For
and,
sure.
it's important. So, and if there's kind of a bump along the way, you try something or they try something, kind of what do you do in those situations and how do you help guide them?
That's a great question, Brooke, and one that you can almost expect, because healing's it's not as easy as say drive down the street, turn right, and there's your destination.
Mhm.
But healing there is going to be oftentimes, I guess you could say, some switchbacks, right? As
Mhm.
long as we're progressing in the right direction, sometimes we do have to create some modifications, and usually it's going to be around how quickly or effectively the body is able to detox. So
Mhm.
if there are certain systems that aren't operating properly, then that can give us some clues as far as like, okay, we need to either push pause on some of the products we're using, or we have to increase dosage on some products and then decrease dosage on others.
Mhm.
Some other strategies I've used have been dependent upon the individual, of course, maybe doing some products in the morning, some at night, and that can help in some situations, or even doing like say 3 days on, 1 day off. So it really is going to depend on the child. We have like principles as far as what we follow and what we found that has worked for the majority of kids. So we'll recommend starting there, but then we can adapt and adjust as needed, based off of like if we're seeing some kind of like bump in the road pop up, like you're saying.
Yeah, fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that weekly check-in is so valuable. As you mentioned, I have so many clients that see biomedical doctors, and but they're not seeing them regularly. It's, there's a lot of gap in between and trying to navigate, although a lot of them, will make themselves available, but it's tricky to get in and get those resources and that support right away. So I think that weekly support is so valuable, and the way you have it structured sounds like it's such an incredible resource for families. So I'm just so glad that you were here today to share your offerings and kind of your passion and your expertise. And I feel like I could pick your brain for another hour, but we do have to wrap up. But I would love to, maybe in the future we can have you back on and dive in deeper. But I'm just grateful.
Love it.
That would be awesome. Yeah. And
well, thank you, Brooke.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. And we'll make sure to include your links in our show notes. And if you have any other resources too, you want to pass along to me, I can include those in the show notes too for our listeners.
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much for this opportunity. It's been fun to connect with you, Brooke, and keep up the good work that you're doing. I know you're doing some great things. So
thank you. Fantastic. Well, I hope you have a great day. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm dancing on the edge again. The wind is calling my name. I'm dancing on the edge again. This time I'm not looking back there. You can change me, you can tell me down. I'll leave echoes in every place I find. I break the molds with the rebels mind. I'm a hurricane of free born mind.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only. The content shared is based on the experiences, opinions, and perspectives of the hosts and their guests and should not be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. The discussions and topics covered are intended to foster understanding and awareness of autism therapies, but are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Before making any decisions regarding therapies or treatments, we strongly encourage you to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who can provide personalized recommendations based on your unique circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and producers are not responsible for any consequences, damages, or outcomes arising from the use or application of any information during the show.